Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's time for the Daily Scrum. I'm Kevin Rouch, coming to you from Studio B in the Elmwood Media Complex. I know what you're wondering. Do you have a guest today? It can't be for the third day in a row. It is. Eric Welch, Mr. Baseball, coming in here in just a minute. We're glad that you're here with us. There we go. We had a little bit of feedback. There we go. Now we're back. Sometimes you just don't hit all the buttons when you need to. But now they're done. And we're ready to go. Again, glad you're here. It is, what is today? Wednesday, July 9th. And all kinds of stuff going on. We have big plans. There have been some organizational meetings today. And we've got some big news coming up later in the week. So we hope that you will join us. Let's try to get hold of our friend Eric Welch here. See if he's ready to go. E. Welch. Eric Welch, are you there? Can you hear us? Huh. We're attached. E. Welch, you there, my man? Let's see if we can make this better. Hold on. Eric Welch, do I have you?
You have me.
All right, there you are. What's going on, man?
Mr. Baseball, huh?
Did you see, by the way, on our slide today, it's just a big baseball?
I did see that.
Because that's what I think of you, you're just a big old baseball. And I don't mean body shape. I don't mean that. That's not an insult. I think of you, if I ever have a question about baseball or something comes up in my mind about baseball, you are the first person I think of.
Well, I appreciate that because I'll give you an answer. It might not be right. But
we don't care about that. we have never cared about that.
Away, right? No
exactly.
Checking here.
Well, let me do just a little bit of background. You got a couple minutes, right, that we can take here?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I moved to Temperance, Michigan.
Where is that right? What are you doing there?
I watch my grandson Carson Yoder Wednesdays, Thursdays, and if Noah has him over the weekend, I bring him back to Columbus.
Well, isn't that awesome?
It doesn't get any better now.
No,
He's
it does.
Almost 2 years. He's
Yeah.
almost 2 years old.
Oh,
and
man.
If it's not Cars, and I mean the series Cars from Pixar Disney, then it's ball. So he's growing up right.
All right. Just teach him to see those seams coming in on the breaking ball. That's where the game left me.
Eyes wide open.
Yeah, all right. So let me just give everybody a little bit of background. Eric Welch was born to be involved in baseball, and he's a West Virginia kid. Went to Marshall University, a member of the Thundering Herd. I've seen pictures of you playing shortstop, but I know you can play everywhere. And that's what he did. And then when he moved along in the world, he ended up doing all kinds of baseball stuff. He this is maybe not a lot of people know this. You were a bullpen catcher for the Clippers.
I did. 1991, a lot of fun.
And that's a position you did not play. Or if you
Not
did,
at all.
okay. Yeah, if you did, it was like Little League, like the second day, and you went, nah.
Not even that.
Okay. So, but there you go. You challenge yourself to do that. That's awesome. You, and then where you and I met, and there's a lot of other stuff too, but let's hit the high points. Meeting me, I think, was one of them. You were Well, I think I first met you when you were a coach under V. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, Tom
Okay.
Venditelli was the manager the first 2 years.
And this is the Zanesville Grays in the Frontier League, which, by the way, still exists. It is an independent baseball league. Much more, it's actually a partner now in Major League Baseball. But at the time you and I started, E. Welch, it was kind of on the periphery of baseball. Was that safe to say?
Yes, it was. And if I'm not mistaken, it was the second independent leg to start around that time. The Northern League
Right.
Started up before that, and then the Frontier League.
Right. And the Northern League, kind of the granddaddy. Everybody knows about the Vec family, and, Bill Murray was involved in that. There's a lot of people like that, right? So the Frontier League was the next league, and it was basically formed in that West Virginia, Kentucky, Ohio footprint, and my hometown of Zanesville had the Zanesville Grays because that's where Zane Grey is from. In fact, it's spelled Grey. And you took over then as the manager, which meant as the radio guy, because the station that I grew up around, my dad was the sports director there for many years. I was doing the play-by-play. And I got to interview you before the game with my little digital recorder. And that's how you and I met. Is that correct?
That is.
I don't know why I'm doing this like a cross exam. Just giving you yes and no's here. I don't know what I'm doing. But so we did that. And then I did that for 4 years. The team went dark. It moved. I remember the last day. That's a story. And you went to Chillicothe to the Paints in the same league. And they didn't have a radio guy. And you said, I know one. And I said, that's great. And you said they do half the games. And I said, that's great because I can do the home games and be home. And they went, nope, we do the away games. And you and I had jobs during the day. And so we would drive everywhere for like day shots and come back home every day. So they'd have like a 4-gamer in Canton. We're back and forth to Thurman Munson Memorial Stadium those 4 days. All right. That's when you get to know a fella. Is that safe to say?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
All hours, too.
Well, yeah, it was crazy.
Some of those rides, Kevin, we'd come back into town, into Columbus, daybreak.
Yeah, that's right.
After an all-night drive from, say, Springfield or Johnstown, PA.
Oh, yeah.
What was that, London, Ontario? Remember up there in Canada?
Oh, it was crazy. It was just crazy. And it's strained, but that's where you build strong bonds. And I would say that you and I have a pretty strong bond over those miles of Pennsylvania Turnpike and sheets before it was big here in Ohio.
Hey, man, and I tell that story all the time about the sheets in Johnstown.
Oh, man.
And we would eat 3 meals a day there.
Yeah. And then on the way out of town in Somerset, where you join back up with the Turnpike, we'd eat there too. The same sheet,
Absolutely.
We were double timing the sheets there a little bit, and it all worked. And then, of course, came back. You and I taught at Columbus State together in the same program there. And then you've done, high school baseball after that. You and I have announced together as you got into a career of announcing, which, by the way, I started for you.
Yes.
I know that's not in your biography, but I'm going to, file some kind of action to get that included because, and I won't tell the story yet, but when you would get thrown out of games, both in Chillicothe and in Zanesville, you would come up then because you had to leave the field and get in civvies, and you would come up and announce the rest of the game with me. And so I'd like to think I had a hand in it somewhere. But you're an outstanding play-by-play announcer. I have done games with you, and that's how we've got to. And most recently, you were the head baseball coach at Bishop Reedy, where your son played. You just stepped down from there, and that's why I can bother you any time of day now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And don't forget, I was also for 1 year head golf coach at Reedy because Jordan played golf as well. And I'm telling you what, if listeners out there, if you're thinking about getting into coaching, you might as well start as a golf coach.
Yeah.
You really don't have to know much about the game of golf. You don't have to be a good player. You just have to be organized, get the players to practice in the matches, and then drive around some really cool some really cool golf courses and play occasionally when you feel like it.
Yeah,
so that's a great way.
Oh
to
my
get in,
gosh! Well,
middle school or high school coaching,
and we played a little bit together around the Frontier League as we traveled and had a lot of fun. And you're right; either one of us could have coached golf. Maybe the player's not the better for it, but we would have had a great time. Now,
absolutely.
Let's talk, because you are Mr. Baseball now. People see your credentials. They understand now why you know all parts of the game. But one thing I will tell everybody, and this is what I want to ask you about first. You could throw batting practice all day, every day. And that is not we've discussed it. That is not a natural motion. Throwing a softball is, which I don't understand how to do. But the overhand motion is not natural, but you could do it day in, day out, and hit your spots. How did you do it?
You know what? Part of that is a mindset that you realize you have to be ready to throw. With some of the teams or organizations that I coached with, it was pretty much me and maybe one other person because I was working with older coaches. They couldn't throw batting practice. And it started early when I was in, say, Babe Ruth, and our coach couldn't throw batting practice, and I always volunteered to throw. And that's a great way to build up your arm strength. I don't recommend 200 to 300 pitches every day.
Oh my goodness!
6 days of the week, but it's a first. It's a want to, and then second is just confidence that you can hit spots and throw good pitches. And Harry Caruso, a longtime friend,
another really good high school coach. Yep.
Absolutely, that I coached with a number of stops with. There were times when he wouldn't let me throw batting practice in pregame because he said, "You're throwing too much love, and these guys aren't getting love in the game. They've got to learn to hit pitches off the plate." And I said, "Well, I'm not your guy then if you need someone off the plate."
No.
So he, being a former college baseball player that included pitching and played well into his 50s in the adult leagues, he would get up on the mound and throw, of course, all over the place like any good pitcher does during batting practice. So, here's the thing, though. 61 years old now, I didn't throw a single batting practice pitch this year. My shoulder is just done.
Yeah. Well, that's what eventually it costs you.
No more tosses.
Yeah. I've got the same thing going. There's a lot of underhand, nicely from here. You do it. That's my favorite phrase now. You do it. I used to do a little bit of catching instruction here in Grandview, and that presupposes that you can get in the crouch. And there's a point where you have to say, here's what I think it looks like, and it involves a chair. So that I totally understand. Now, let's talk a little bit about, because I think when I talk to people about independent baseball, which again is where you and I spent years, literally years, not affiliated. At that time, we had to get signed by a major league organization to move them along, which still happens. But now, if you look at the bottom pages of those leagues, like the Frontier League, it'll say that they're a partner with Major League Baseball, and that is quite an accomplishment. But talk a little bit about independent baseball and why that was such an important thing when we were doing it.
Well, when it came along, the Frontier League started in 1993 with that small footprint that you mentioned of Ohio, Kentucky, and West Virginia. And it was started to allow players who didn't have the 5 tools, who didn't have the size, who didn't have the rocket arms on the hill, to have an opportunity to prove themselves in a wooden bat league against other players who had, like themselves, used up their college eligibility. And it really caught on. As a matter of fact, the reason that I got out of it and the reason that Chillicothe Paints are now a wood bat league is the footprint got way too big for homegrown people like you and me to travel around the league. And I think that's a testament to how good it was.
Yep.
And in the early days, there were quite a few players. I say quite a few, dozen maybe, and you can fact check me on that. But in those first few years that eventually made it to major league organizations and even up into the big leagues. And it was as I mentioned, it was a second chance for guys who had finished up their college eligibility, did not get drafted. I'll use Terry Pearson as an example from Alabama and pitched at West Alabama, and he had a little bit of arm trouble and was coming back from that, but he was 5'11", and at that time, professional scouts, if they turned in a card on a guy who was 5'11" and a pitcher only, right-handed especially, he wouldn't get another look. And Terry came into the league and 2 solid years for us in Zanesville. One of the years he was pitcher of the year, and was eventually signed by the Northern League. And after a year there, he was signed by the Tigers and went through their organization and actually made it out of spring training one year back in the mid-90s and spent 2 weeks at the big league level as a pitcher. And, he would never have gotten that chance because he didn't have the measurables, but he proved it night in and night out at the professional level.
Yeah, and there are tons of stories like that. And now, that league, it happens all the time because they're kind of a parking place for some of those stories. Instead of low A ball or rookie ball for the affiliated teams, they'll send them to one of the independent leagues now. And they're also, like with the Atlantic League, which always had a little older player, a little bit more money, they'll test ideas out, like the automated strike zone and the 2 bags at first and, that kind of stuff. They'll use them as proving grounds for some of the ideas, and then if they work, they travel up, right? Because we see the automatic strike zone in the AAA level. So it was a great place to be. Every once in a while, you get some guys that would be a little different. And you and I had a chance to watch a fella by the name of Gator McBride with Chillicothe, who had come up in the Atlanta system, had stalled at AA. I think he was in the same class with Chipper Jones, I think. And Chipper went on and had a decent career at Atlanta. And Gator came to the league, and I just remember his first batting practice because people will talk about, he hit this way and everybody turned around. And I'm telling you, he hit the first 2 and everybody turned around to see what was happening because it just sounded different.
Yes, absolutely. And, here's one of the cool things. I reconnected with Gator years later when his son, who is a year younger than my youngest son, Jordan, who I just finished coaching at Reedy, and he graduated. He's going to go to Ohio Dominican and not play baseball. But anyway, Gator's son, Charlie, which it would be Charlie Jr. because Gator's real name is Charlie. But they played some ball together. So that was a lot of fun just to hang out with Gator. He was on the fast track with that organization, but he had habitual hamstring pulls. They drafted him out of, I think it was John Logan Junior College out in Illinois. And then, he came to Chillicothe, and like you said, he was just different. And we had a lot of guys in that organization at Chillicothe. Kudos to Roger Hanners and Chris Hanners and Brian Wickline, who's still running the show down there. But they would find these players that really had a lot of success at the Frontier League level and made some moves. Brian Tolberg, before I got there, when I was still with Zanesville, Brian Tolberg, I think he may have been the first to make it out of the Frontier League.
He was. He went to San Diego and played, yeah.
But Gator, that guy could hit it at any level.
Yeah.
The body just gave out on him, but he was a great player and incredible stories that come out of that league. Some of the best. Yeah, I've spent the last 20 plus years as a backup broadcaster on the Clippers radio network. So I've been around the Clippers quite a bit since '91, except for that break when I was in the Frontier League. And quite honestly, a guy like Scott Pannoni, who played for us in Chillicothe, a guy like Morgan Burkhart, who made it to the big leagues with the Red Sox, but cut his teeth over in Richmond for the Richmond Roosters. Those guys were as good a hitters as guys like Jose Ramirez. People are going to go, no, you're full of it. Jose Ramirez, guys who are still, Carlos Santana came up with the Clippers. I saw him a ton. Those guys could hit as well as those other guys. They just didn't have the measurables, and they just, didn't quite have the it factor to get to the big leagues. But man, what an experience that was. The 7 years I spent in the Frontier League, and in spite of spending the last 3, 4, 5 years with you, it's a great experience.
A lot of miles on. I think we kind of split the cars, and then we just drive them in a lake and walk away because we just beat the crap out of this. Scott Pannoni, you mentioned, by the way, people may remember that name around here. He was a Worthington Christian grad. And at that time, he could have played football, but they didn't have football at that time. They do now. But what hands he had for a big fella. I remember, one of the stories was, I think we were in Windy City, and I was broadcasting. Oh, no, I can't remember what it was, but I happened to be in the stands during the game, and a fan was giving Scott Pannoni everything she could about being a little bit bigger fella. And
he was portly, right?
Well, he was a big dude, but man, what hands he had at first base. And with the bat. But I remember going down, and I would never get mad because I would lose my job if I yelled at a fan. But I asked her a couple of questions about it, and that had he been at the same buffet that she was at, and then walked away. And by the way, I'm not a small guy, so I don't poke fun at people about that. I'm a member of the club, but I just thought it was too much. I mean, it was just awful, and it was in front of her kids, and but she quieted down after that, and I'm not sorry about it.
That's right.
It was just awful. But he was he was one of those guys that probably got passed over a little bit, maybe because of that. And you just, I remember, who still broadcast, Bob Spears, who's the color guy now with Matt Andrews, who took over for me at Chillicothe on the air. And Bob was a pitcher, and I had him on between his starts. So I think he owes me too. But he went. I remember he got picked up by the Reds after a season. Had a great slider. Maybe they would call that a sweeper now, the way that he threw it. But he went down to camp and got like 3 guys out. But because he didn't hit 90, he was gone the next day, and he had struck out 3 guys from the big league camp. And you just saw that and you went, oh, they're missing out. There will be guys now who were superstars, Greg Maddux, for example, who would not probably get another look.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true. Because he didn't have the measurables.
Yeah.
He wasn't tall. He wasn't big. He didn't project to be, 6'4" and be able to throw 98, 99 miles an hour. But I talked about earlier with Jose Ramirez and a guy like Carlos Santana, they have that it factor.
Yeah.
Greg Maddux obviously had the it factor.
Yeah. Well, but it's just fun to think about because the game just changes. I think about my catching career as a young man in Zanesville. No one taught me to block a ball. I was picking everything like my boy Johnny Bench, and I wore out a path to the backstop. He did not do that. So anyway, now let's talk about, if you're, you have kids who have played sports. One of the issues that comes up all the time, especially in baseball, is playing all summer on a lot of these travel teams where you're going many, many, many miles to play. As a coach, as a guy who played baseball well, as a guy who has really been at all levels of an organization, what's your thought on what a guy should do in the summertime?
In all honesty, I have kind of changed my tune a little bit, but I'm split on that. I used to be totally against the whole travel ball model. I felt like many of the organizations were run by guys who didn't really teach good baseball fundamentals. It was all about just finding the best players that they can who were willing to pay the money. And so they didn't learn the game of baseball. But one of the things that players who do play at a competitive level, and we'll use travel ball as the term for that, one of the things they do over the summer is they face good quality pitching, or as pitchers, they face good quality hitters day in and day out. And, I kind of learned that lesson this year at Reedy. One of our better players was a freshman by the name of Liam Hansen, and he had played travel ball the past 3, 4, 5 years. And at the beginning of the season, I had him on the JV team against the wishes of some of our assistant coaches. And at one point, Nick Fott, one of our assistants, said, "Coach, we're facing good pitchers day in and day out." We faced Ashton Martin, the Division IV Player of the Year, out of Jonathan Alder. He hit us. Anthony Campbell got the base hit for us. And when Martin was named Division IV Player of the Year, I forwarded him that meme and said, "You got a hit off him." But anyway, Nick Fott said, "Coach, Liam is a guy who has seen this pitching time and time again over the summer. Let's bring him up." And so we did. And Liam ended up against those good pitchers more often than not having quality at-bats. So that's the positive side of it, is that they do get those reps and those experiences. But, Kevin, I coached 6 years of freshman football at Hilliard Bradley. And a lot of good football players dropped out after the freshman year. I hope it wasn't because of me and my coaching. But
they knew it wasn't going to get any better than that.
No, because they would specialize in a sport. I know the baseball program lost some good pitchers, or some good players, because guys were specializing. And I think that's one of the bigger issues now in sport is high school baseball, high school football, high school basketball, and especially those last two on the boys' side are 12-month-a-year deals. Actually, their OHSAA requires a month break for those two sports. So really, they're only 11 months. But with everything that goes on, like in May, teams were having 7-on-7 tournaments for football. Well, May is baseball season still.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of multi-sport athletes because it does, for instance, baseball, it gives players a break in terms of their arm. And it also teaches them to compete at other sports and helps them use muscles and mechanics that they don't use in their sport of baseball. So I'm a huge multi-sport proponent.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons I was attracted to a smaller school here in Columbus was the ability for the kids to play whatever. Now, it turns out at Grandview, really no cuts. Every once in a while, they don't have enough uniforms, but it's not based on ability. I think it's based on size. I feel fit the uniform. I think it does a world of good for them, as you said, mostly on their muscle development. Because when you're using an arm 11 months, if you're a really good pitcher, I think about all those guys that came over from Japan, and that was always kind of the rap about that, was they were just throwing way too many pitches, and they were much older than their age on the roster because they had thrown so much, and they didn't quite last as long. Now, that's been debated. I don't mind good competition, but what I mind is I'm also cheap, so maybe I'm more about those long trips where I got to get a hotel room and all that stuff. But, but no, I'm glad you said that, though. I think that's important for people to weigh and how much they want to do that. But I agree with you. I think the most important question now is learning to play other sports. If you have an interest in it, don't do it for the heck of it. But if you have an interest in it, I think you'll be better off in the other ones. That's all fair. Now let's look at let's jump up to Major League Baseball now, because I know you and I share a team that we cheer for, and it has been a little frustrating lately. But having said that, what do you make of, because I haven't really talked to you about this, is the new rules, the clock, all the things that they've done to speed up the game. At first I was like, I don't know, it's going to change the environment. And then I kind of like the fact that this is moving forward. What are your feelings?
I love the pitch clock. I love, and at first I loved it from the start, because I think that Major League Baseball had to do some things to speed up the games because they were just taking way too long. One of the rules that Major League Baseball uses that I was leery of was the pitcher disengaging from the mound twice, and then he can't do it again unless he gets an out on the bases. In other words, pitcher can only throw over to first to try to pick off a runner or keep a runner close twice. If he does it a third time, he's got to throw him. He's got to actually pick him off.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what, that I'm not sure that I like that. But I don't think it has changed the game that much, other than help speed it up.
Yeah.
Batters get one timeout per at bat instead of guys like Mike Hargrove, the old Cleveland Indians manager, when he was playing in the big leagues. His nickname was the human rain delay.
Yeah, boy.
After every pitch, he'd step out of the box, readjust his batting gloves, fix his shirt, pull his jersey up, pull it down, do this, do that, get back in the box, and it had been a minute since he'd seen a pitch. So I'm really a big fan of that. Now, OHSAA just, and you have it on cbussports.com.
We do indeed, yeah. Yep.
That Ohio High School will go to in 2027 a double bag at first base on plays in the infield or plays at first base coming from the infield. The foul territory bag, which in most NCAA schools that started using it last year, use a green bag.
Okay.
I know the OAC with Otterbein Capital, those schools have had an orange bag for years, but that belongs to the runner on plays in the infield going to first. And the white bag, the one that's in fair territory, belongs to the first baseman, pitcher, second baseman, whoever's covering. I love that, and I've been advocating that for a long time.
Yeah.
Because, number one, it's a safety thing. I have seen frustrated batters run into first base who are put out, intentionally try to elbow the first baseman, step on the first baseman's foot. I have seen inadvertent or unavoidable collisions because the throw is up the line toward first base. And I think NCAA and girls softball for a number of years in the OHSAA has proven that the double bag at first base is a good thing. I'd like to see Major League Baseball go to that.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with it at all. And the one thing that people will have to remember, there may be on the outside bag, which is the runner's bag, they may paint part of that white because it is in fair territory. So that will help determine what's fair and foul. But the bag is still the runner's. So everybody has to get used to that. And the first baseman, sometimes they have to cross over into foul territory to take something. The rules allow them to do that and still get the out. So, people just have to get used to it. It's like anything else. The pitch clock, I don't even think – every once in a while, it comes up now, and there is zero controversy about it.
No, there's not a question. The umpire will step out behind home plate, point to his watch. He'll either call a ball or a strike, and everybody moves on.
And then, and everybody understands it now. There's no arguing. Now, what's been interesting at Clippers games, which, of course, we have done and I like to point this out, we've done a summary on CBUS Sports of every Clippers game this season. Some even longer stories, but certainly we cover every game. And so I've been there quite a bit, and I do not mind the automatic strike to be able to appeal to it. I don't like it when the home plate umpire is simply mimicking whatever the call is. But I do like the appeal process. It is fast, and I think pretty accurate,
Yes. And the fact that it flashes up on the board, the first time I saw that, I had forgotten about it when I was doing the Clippers game. And I'm thinking, why is the batter telling the outfielder keep the runner off second by tapping the top of his helmet?
Yeah.
That's the signal we use from the dugout to tell our outfielders we don't care about the runner on second on a base hit. Just throw to second.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay.
From getting there, right? So that's the signal. Tap the top of the helmet. And then I realized, oh, wait a minute. He's signaling, I want to challenge that pitch. And it comes flashing up on the scoreboard. It's either a ball or a strike. Move on.
Yeah. And it has been, I mean, it was interesting when it was the automatic thing. I mean, that you don't get any, I mean, it speeds along, but there's something to me that's maybe it's because of being old school and having gone to umpire school and all that, is that it just feels a little artificial. But the appeal, I mean, we're so used to television review now, or, monitor review, that it really, and again, it doesn't take, that takes no time. It is much faster than tag plays and, all that other stuff where they take time to go out and look at it.
Right.
And I mean, I'm shocked it works so well, because I know, you and I both live in the electronic world when we're announcing and traveling around the state to do high school games. And I know all the malfunctions that can happen with diodes and transmitters and, and I'm just surprised there's very little of that, that I've been around. So, kudos to whoever came up with the system. It's really been very good. And there was a game in Major League Baseball the other day that apparently I did not see it. And I've not looked at highlights, where the home plate umpire was having an extremely bad day. And boy, he could have got out of hot water with that. It would have kind of set him right. And he could have seen, I mean, he was 6 inches or more off the plate. And it was, and it always shocks me. The batters are so good at knowing where the ball is in the strike. Almost always their appeals have some merit. Catchers are good too. Some say catchers are a little better. Pitchers are terrible at calling it. So I would have a rule on my team that a pitcher's not allowed to appeal anything ever.
Cannot appeal.
And we're not appealing in the first 3 innings, unless bases are loaded and it's a walk or something. I mean, it's got to be something off the chart. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it's really good. Now, baseball, you and I were young. It was the national pastime, clearly. One of the things that hurt it a lot, and we saw this in the Frontier League because we actually got rewarded a little bit because of it, because we got players from it, was the 94 strike. But I think that changed I think that was the first thing that started to change it. And then I think fantasy leagues and gambling made football way more attractive because it's a better sport to gamble on, or so I've heard. And your thoughts about that, where baseball is going? Maybe this is the bigger philosophical question here, because you and I are still devotees of the sport. Will it ever resume that place in all the sports that exist?
I don't think it will, because these other sports have learned how to market their stars. One of the great things about Major League Baseball over the years was the star impact. A Babe Ruth, a Lou Gehrig, and moving up to Sandy Koufax, and then moved to the Big Red Machine, and don't forget about Jackie Robinson as well, that brought in that demographic. But these other sports have learned how to market the big time athletes. And you know what? And I'm okay with where baseball is. I understand when I'm watching a game sometime, I understand why fans say, oh, it's too boring. I'll sit and watch a game and think, man, this pitcher needs to be better. He needs to throw more strikes.
Yeah, you're up by 5. We don't need to walk somebody at this point.
Put the ball over the plate.
Yeah.
What was it? The line from Bull Durham? Crash Davis told Nuke LaLoosh, strikeouts are fascist. You're trying to do everything yourself. Let everybody else have a chance to play. But having said that, there's just a beauty about baseball that these other sports don't have. And I know I'm waxing poetic.
That's why I asked you a philosophical question. Yeah.
But there's just a beauty to it. I mentioned Harry Caruso earlier. He grew up on Long Island in New York, so lifetime Yankee fan. And his son, Nick Caruso, has become a Yankee fan as well. And Jordan has turned me into as much as of a Guardians fan as I am a Reds fan. And, partly doing the Clippers over the past, 15 years now?
Sure.
16th year. They've been affiliated with the Indians/Guardians. But we went up to that playoff game between the Yankees and the Guardians last year when John Kinsey Noel hit the home run.
Oh, yeah.
In the bottom of the ninth to tie it up. And you get that in the other sports. You get the last-second field goal, the last-second touchdown, the half-court heave that beats the buzzer. But, man, there's just something about the build-up to that ninth inning, down 3 runs. You got to get 2 runners on before a home run matters. And I remember John Kinsey Noel coming out on the on-deck circle as a pinch hitter, and Caruso goes, "Who is that guy?" And because when he came to the plate, they flashed his batting average, which was probably, 211, 210 at that time last year during the regular season. And I said, he's there to do one thing. And he said, hit the home run, right? And I said, he can do it. And bam, home run, and then they win it on a walk-off in the 10th inning. And I've been to many quote-unquote walk-off basketball and football games, but nothing beats the baseball walk-off.
Yeah, there's just because not only that, but it's designed for you to take a parade lap. Mm-hmm. There's just no other sport where it's designed. Now you got to be careful how you do that. You can't.
Yes.
You can't go too crazy, but it is designed that way. And I mean, for me, calling games, and it's funny. I think most people would agree with this. I've had a lot of discussions across sports as I've been in a lot of press boxes, and pretty universally, the favorite sport to call is baseball on the radio. Because,
absolutely.
You get to draw the picture for folks. And, Vin Scully was just the best at it. It was like a postcard coming to life, the way that he called it. And we all tried to do that. Most of us, far short of it. But it was the most fun. Now, I will tell you, it's also the worst. Because if your team is down 21-2 in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and you're doing the game by yourself in the rain, that might be the worst ever.
Absolutely.
But I always knew that Dr. Hanners always told me, the owner of the Chillicothe Paints, I listened to every broadcast from start to finish. And I knew that I had to bring it home because I probably had 2 people announcing, half of which were he. Yes. So,
yes.
But there's nothing like it when you're announcing a game and it's tight and, there's just the crowd's into it. And I think that for an announcer, I think that's about as good as it gets.
No, you're exactly right. And it brings out the stories because you fill that time. And, if you do it right, if you do your research, or like with the Clippers, Anthony Slosher does a tremendous job with the game notes, as do others in the Frontier League or in the International League, in terms of providing all of that information. It's a lot of fun. You make sure that your stories don't get in the way of the action on the field, but there is a lot of time to fill. And it's a lot of fun, especially if you're doing it with someone who you have a great rapport with. That's why I like doing games with you.
Well, I appreciate that. We've always had fun. Now, I do, before I let you go here, because something tells me there's a toddler running around without supervision. So I want to make sure.
Not yet. Hadn't picked him up yet.
Oh, okay. All right. So the only story I'll tell, I'm not going to tell the big one. You know the one I love. We're going to save that. We're going to tease with that. It involves you being thrown out. We're not going to tell that today, which I know you were probably afraid of. But I'm going to tell one on me, okay? And that is when you and I would drive together. I will tell the first part of the story was my son, Casey, probably was 7 years old. something like that. And he would go with us and be a bat boy a lot, along with my other sons at various times. But in this particular case, we did go to Canton, and we were driving home, and we got a flat tire. And Casey, who to this day barely talks, barely shows emotion, he's the one that is kind of like that guy in basketball. He would hang around screens and then try to steal it from you, just sandbagging, just not talking, not saying a word, and then try to, leap out and do. Well, that's Casey. So he was always very quiet on our rides. But all of a sudden, we get this flat tire, and we pull over, and I see he's just crying his eyes out. And I say to him, what? I'm really sorry, man. I didn't mean to drive over that nail or whatever. And I said, are you okay? And he kind of nodded his head. And I said, why are you crying about this? We're going to get it fixed. We'll be on our way. And he goes, we're going to have to live here. In his mind, if you stopped the car someplace for too long, that meant you were moving there. And I don't know where he got it. I don't know what show he watched. I don't know who he heard it from. But I finally explained we're going to fix it and go all the way home, and he was okay. And I'd never heard that. I've never seen it since. I don't know why he came up with that. But yeah. But the more important part of the story is then you and I would go down 30, take a left on 71, head toward Columbus. And then there was a stop we always made about 7 miles after making that turn where we would get out. And I want you to explain why we had to stop. Now, we didn't have to go to the bathroom or buy snacks or do any of this stuff. Why did we have to stop there?
Because I had to warm up in the 93-degree heat.
And why did you have to warm up?
Because you had the air conditioning set at the lowest setting ever. I'm pretty sure that it was hovering right above freezing. It'd be like stepping into a walk-in cooler. It was not comfortable at all. As a matter of fact, I would make sure that I would pack my winter parka and my gloves and a toboggan for my head because it was so cold in there.
So the deal is I needed it cold to stay awake. I mean, that's, we've seen this, and I'm not comparing myself to David Letterman, but I've been in that studio, and it's really cold because they don't want you going to sleep. They don't want you yawning. They don't want any of that stuff. Well, I mean, again, we were back and forth and working jobs and all that. So I would crank that dude down and this particular car would get really cold. So you would get out, and I was fine I guess I have a lot of natural insulation, but you would get out, go to the trunk, put on these mittens and a parka, and people in this gas station would be looking because it was 80 degrees. And they wondered, what in God's name? And we would just laugh, get in the car, and go on our way.
That was miserable.
Yeah, no, so here's what I'm going to do today, because I have never apologized for this, and I'm never going to. Okay? Sorry. I can't do it. I just can't do it. It was for the safety of my family. I'm not apologizing. Actually, it was for my own safety is what it was. So they didn't care. Yeah, come home, don't come home. We don't care. But, boy, we had a lot of fun. And we're going to tell some more of these stories because we got tons. Next time, because I told on myself a little bit this time, I'm going to feel less guilty about talking about Portsmouth. And I think you know where we're going.
Always has to come up. And you know what the thing I like about when you tell that story? It gets better every time you tell it. So I'm looking forward to the next time we do this.
So when you and I were both teaching at Columbus State, I would tell that story to a class who obviously had you. We were in the same program. They would have you later in the day for something, and I would just wait for the phone call.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you told the story today.
Yeah. All right.
The students would let me know.
All right. That's enough of a tease. I don't want people to get mad at us. But next time you're on, which will just be a couple of weeks from now, we will tell that story and go into it. But man, what a great time we had. What an absolutely great time. My wife was going through pictures last night and pulled out a picture of two of our boys with Stephen Bird, one of the great characters ever with the Chillicothe. He paints out of Rainbow City, Alabama. And he would come on the air with me, and we'd have to do Alabama to English translation.
He had it thick.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. And we've got a lot of other people to talk about and other rules. So keep your eye on Major League Baseball. And I, too, like the Guardians as well, because now you get to know. I mean, when I'm in the dugout taking pictures and you're around these guys and they make it up there, you can't help but cheer for them and want them to do well. So I'm right with you on that.
Yes, sir. Like Brian Rocchio last night.
Yeah, exactly. Got the game-winning hit. Yeah, so it's just fun to see them. And I'm just always reminded when I go down there, and I'm sure when you're around folks, it's just how young these guys are.
Right.
You know, you just feel like you get pretty paternal after a while and want to make sure, that they're doing. I mean, you just heart bleeds for them when they have a bad outing. So, yeah, it's just It's tough. Anyway, we'll talk more about all this stuff. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being on today and letting me just, palaver about things and you telling stories. But we'll have more, and we'll do some more serious analysis next time. But we had to lay the groundwork today.
Looking forward to it, and thanks a lot, and let's have lunch soon.
All right, man. All right. I think this one's on you. I'm not sure.
It is.
My
turn.
All right. Well, I know it's going to involve a drive-through then, but we'll get that done. And, hey, E, thank you so much, brother.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right. Talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye now.
Take care. Bye.
That was Eric Welch, Mr. Baseball, and I hope you see now why I call him that. You just have – we all have some people in our lives, that you think you're pretty smart about something. And I was a baseball guy growing up. It's what I did the most. It's what I announced the most. It's what I coached the most. My kids didn't like it as much as I did. They liked football better. But I think that's because I did like baseball. And they got to play it too, which was a lot of fun. But there's just something about it for us that translates to fun and stories. And we'll have some more, and I will tell you the Portsmouth story. And it will get better, but even that between now and then. So we'll do that. But again, a lot of fun having Eric Welch on the show. We'd love him to do some more stuff for us. I couldn't really do that. He's been coaching lately, and hopefully he'll have some time for us now that he's he's in his 60s too. It's just hard to imagine. When we met each other, we were both in our 30s, trying to make our way in minor league baseball. So he on the field and in the dugout managing, and me up in the press box, and just a lot of fun. It's the Wild West out there in that circumstance. Hey, we've got another guest tomorrow, just like that, 4th in 4 days. And it will be our friend Ian Phillips, who is the owner and proprietor of the Ohio Hockey Digest. And he is just finished up his freshman year at OU in journalism. He's been writing, though, for 3 years, and with credentials for the Blue Jackets. His sport is hockey. He played that at Gahanna Lincoln High School. He is, regardless of age, one of the smartest people, one of the most talented people that I know. And we look forward to talking to Ian tomorrow. What a great personal story he has, what he has overcome to do the things that he does. He is humble about it, friendly, just a good young man. And I am proud to call him a friend. I've gotten to know him over the last couple of years, and he's a go-to guy. So tomorrow, Ian Phillips on the program. We'll find out what he's up to and how school went, and what he's got planned. He has done some stories for us on CBus Sports. I hope that will continue. I value his opinion, certainly his knowledge of hockey. He's taught me a lot about it as I've gotten to cover the Blue Jackets as well. So young Ian Phillips, Old Soul, will be on tomorrow. We hope that you will join us for that. And then Chris Sprague from the Columbus Clippers will be on Friday. He's in charge of the media for the Clips, used to work for the International League. So we'll ask him about the evolution of the Clippers and the league itself and how all that's structured. Hope you've enjoyed the conversations. Oh, we have some big news coming up. I mean, on a couple of different fronts. That'll probably be Monday. big news about what we're going to do and how we're going to kind of change a couple things around. We hope that you'll think about tuning in any of these days. We'd be glad to have you. We usually go about an hour, maybe a little less. We don't try to keep you on there for nothing. That'll do it for us today. Again, thanks to Eric Welch for being here. Look forward to talking to Ian Phillips tomorrow. For everybody here in Studio B, I'm Kevin Rouch, and this is the Daily Scrum. Good afternoon, everybody.